off for right now, Ken.
I'll beach off with you any day, Ken.
Anyone who wants to beach him off has to beach me off first.
I will beach both of you off at the same time.
Beach both of us off?
Nobody's gonna beach anyone off.
This weekend, it is officially Barbenheimer, and I got to see both movies yesterday. And in honor of the special weekend, I decided to do a double feature on this review. So the first part of this video will be a review for Barbie. The second half of this review will be for Oppenheimer. There will be no spoilers on both of them, so don't worry. But I think it's pretty cool to just do these kind of double feature reviews. So anyways, let's get on to the first review of the day. I really like to think that the Barbie movie is almost somebody's Spider-Man No Way Home. Because I didn't grow up with Barbies. At most, I just saw my sisters and my cousins or siblings play with Barbies, but that was about it. I never played with one. But I mean, I think everyone knows the gist. They're just dolls. There's these plastic dolls. There's Barbie. There's Ken. That's about it. But I remember I wasn't going to watch the movie, but that second trailer really enticed me. And what really enticed me about it was the uniqueness. One of my issues right now with current Hollywood, it seems like every movie right now has to be this big action blockbuster that's about the world ending. But every once in a while, I think it's nice to have something unique and different. And that's what the Barbie movie is. Now, I am going to say this right now, and I think this needs to be stated before in every review. One thing that needs to be made obvious is this movie is going to have a lot of political anger towards it. You're going to have liberals and conservatives once again fighting. It's going to be kind of like The Last Jedi, or even just recently Indiana Jones Dials of Destiny. You're going to see people complaining about this movie. You're going to see people worshiping this movie. And I think it's a little frustrating. I think there's some merit to some of the arguments, but overall, I mean, really, if you're having to get angry over a movie about a plastic doll, then you gotta reprioritize your life. Like, I'm just gonna be completely honest. But anyways, what do I think of the Barbie movie? Well, I wasn't hyped up for it, but I still checked it out because I wanted to go do Barbenheimer. You know, I've never done a double feature in one day. You know, I'm a very, let's just say, energetic person. I just can't sit still all that often. So sometimes it's even hard for me just to even go watch a movie, let alone two of them in one day. But Barbie, honestly, it was like 10 or 20 minutes into the film. Actually, just 10 minutes. And all I kept thinking was, am I really here watching a Barbie movie? Like, am I actually here to watch a freaking Barbie movie? Because it really is very, very flamboyant. It's very fun and energetic. I will say this movie knows how to handle it being fun. Now, there's a difference between funny and fun, and I'm going to get into it a little more. But this first part of the movie is just silly. But it's funny for parts of it, but I will say this right now. The standout of this movie, and I believe that it's going to cause a lot more memes, as Ryan Gosling as Ken. Ken in this movie was literally the standout. I even would argue he's a lot like Chris Pine in that first Wonder Woman film, where Chris Pine isn't the star of the film, but he does overshadow Gal Gadot in her own movie, which is fine because Gal Gadot at the time was not really an actress. But with Ryan Gosling, it's a little different. Ryan Gosling's just that funny and charismatic that every scene he's there is just funny. And I know right now the Ryan Gosling memes are going on, you know, that's literally me. That's literally me. You know, I Drive or Blade Runner 2049 or whatever. But the memes are really going to take another level, I believe, after this movie, because Ryan Gosling really is by far the best part of this film. And no disrespect to anyone else. Margot Robbie was great. I think Simu Liu, I remember he was in the movie. But you know, just Ken's just really hilarious. And the movie, honestly, the arc in this movie is, Ken goes through the biggest development. His arc changes. His story is so different from beginning to end. And I didn't expect that much of Ken because all the marketing was just, he's just Ken. And that's it. But he's a lot in the movie. Although I will say this right now, some of you guys are going to get offended by a little bit of how they portray men in this film. And I'm going to get into that a little more. But overall, the movie was just fun. It was just silly. I think, I will say, there's a lot of jokes in this movie that are so unfunny that I felt cringe. That I was kind of cringing at. And to give you an example, there's a scene in the trailer where Barbie kind of like has her feet straightened down for the first time. It's not like her heels are touching the ground. That scene was very unfunny. And there's a couple of those parts in this movie that it's just so unfunny. And that's why I say in a way Ryan Gosling carried it, because Ryan Gosling's humor was just so funny that it levels the rest of the film. But there's a lot of risk in this film. First of all, there's a lot of jokes on Barbie itself that I'm surprised that the company even allowed them to make, because usually you're not allowed to do stuff like that. But it felt like a very personal film by Greta Gerwig, and she did a lot of independent films. She's known for that, and now she's with this big brand. And what I like about this movie is no disrespect to Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny, but it didn't feel like a movie that was only out there because they were like, oh, popular IP, boom, let's just make a movie out of it. Because that's what it feels like nowadays. It just feels like they have this popular IP and they're like, okay, let's try to make some money out of it. Let's give it a movie. That's usually what it feels like nowadays. You know, with a lot of Hollywood films. Indiana Jones, honestly, to me, feels that way. Even though I like the movie, that's kind of what Dial of Destiny felt. It didn't feel like they were trying to end the story or the chapter of Indiana Jones. No, it kind of felt like they were like, oh, crap, we got that. We can make money out of it. Let's see how much money we can make. Barbie felt different. Barbie felt like it was Greta Gerwig making her movie and trying to honor Barbie at the same time. And that's what I love about the movie, because the movie feels very personal. Honestly, I genuinely think this is a movie that mothers and daughters should go watch. And look, I'm going to say this right now. I always have soft spots for stories about fathers and sons. Like, I don't try to get into that a lot in my videos, but my personal life, a lot of times, one of the hardest things I always have to deal with is my issues with my dad. And this movie captures that, but in a mother-daughter dynamic. So I felt that soft spot in that movie. And I really enjoyed it for that. And there's some musical parts of it. I'm not a big musical guy, but there's some musical parts that I liked. There's a specific song with Ken singing that I thought was really good. But for the most part, it's just a solid movie. The behind this, like, just seeing the sets and the props, that, like, the work that went into that, bro, I think that's Oscar level. Not saying that the movie itself is Oscar level. I'm just saying that the props and the scene, like the way they put everything behind the scenes, like all that's Oscar level. And I love it for that. And I think this movie really, the thing is, this is where I think it's really going to define whether or not you like this movie. The movie has a specific social message that's very interesting. Now, I will say one of my criticisms is I think parts of the movie go too preachy. Almost in a way, kind of, the best way I can explain it is the one scene in the Batman that I didn't, or the one moment in the Batman I didn't like was when Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, she just randomly says these white privileged assholes. Like, I felt like that was too random. It also kind of reminds me in Thor: Love and Thunder where Jane just kind of says, I'm not Lady Thor, I'm Mighty Thor. And it's that level of cringe. But the thing is, that's only a small part of it. But the rest of it is an actual good message. And look, I don't care what anyone says. I like it when movies have messages. I love it when a story can leave you leaving the theater thinking, man, this is a good thing I could tell to people around me, or my life changes in this way. That's why Spider-Man 2 is my favorite movie of all time, bro. Spider-Man 2 is about a young man figuring his place out in the world and his identity. You know, it's basically a movie about a guy with an identity crisis. And I love that, ultimately, for that movie. It does get into patriarchy stuff. It does get into how our world has gender issues. It does get into the wage gap, all that. Look, I'm just going to say this right now. If you're surprised at that, I mean, this is a movie that is target demographic as women. You know, and by the way, I also want to clarify, I don't think this movie, honestly, is for kids. Even the marketing never really marketed itself as for kids, but this movie has some jokes and has some messages that I feel like kids aren't really going to understand. So, I guess if you have daughters, sure, but there's a couple of inappropriate jokes that I don't know. It just depends on how you are as a parent. I'm not here to tell people how to parent. But I don't know. If you're someone who doesn't want their kids seeing like inappropriate jokes like that, then I would say probably don't take them. But the message in this movie, honestly, I liked it. And I liked how they did it. I just think parts of it were a little too preachy. And I like that it shows you the big difference between Barbie world and the real world, where the real world has all these issues and yada, 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 while the Barbie world is almost this perfect utopia where, you know, everyone's either Barbie or Ken. and yada yada yada. But overall, I enjoyed the movie. I'm already gonna expect the controversy. I've already seen some people. I think Piers Morgan, like 2 weeks ago, was trying to say how this movie is an attack on masculinity. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but like, if a Barbie movie gets you offended, then you're probably not masculine to begin with. And look, I know some people are gonna look. It's fine if you like or dislike a movie, but to go out of your way to say that this movie is this, and that, it's like, I don't know, man. Maybe if you're scared of your son being a little more feminine, don't take them to watch the Barbie movie. But then again, it's a Barbie movie. Like, the hell were you expecting? Like, were you expecting John Wick to show up? Were you expecting G.I. Joe to show up? Like, the hell were you thinking, bro? Like, Barbie's always been primarily for women. And I like what the movie did. I think it was overall solid. I think, honestly, it's not like a best movie of the year. It's nowhere near that. But it's definitely a movie that I enjoyed. And what I really love about I didn't love this movie, but one thing I really love about the movie is that it just felt unique to what we're getting in Hollywood a lot right now, where it's just generic, action movies. And I love action movies, but a lot of them are starting to feel very jumbled up. And I'm referring to superhero films, action films. And I like that the Barbie was just a breath of fresh air, and I like that. And overall, I enjoyed the movie. Don't really know who to recommend it to, but just based on my review, I would assume that if you just want to go have a fun time, especially if you're a woman, you're probably going to enjoy this movie. Other than that, you might not. I don't know. To me, I tend to leave my brain out when I watch movies, so I don't care. But I enjoyed it. I liked it, and it was overall pretty solid. But it's just unfortunate that it's going to be jumbled up with this whole topic of masculinity, which unfortunately has affected a lot of people right now. It's like, if you're a man, be a man. If you're a woman, be a woman. It's like, I don't think it's that difficult. Like, if you don't want to show your kids Barbie, then don't go show them Barbie. Like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, at some point, you got to stop being a complete dumbass, and realize that, hey, not everything is this specific attack, and like, I do have a couple of criticisms that would need to be more spoilery, but it is what it is. I will say I do find interesting. Like, I didn't expect them to do the Ken Ra. Oh, and I forgot to bring this up, but Will Ferrell is in this movie, and his business people, they're kind of like, it's funny because when they portray you the real world and the Barbie world, the real world is this very grounded place, and then the Barbie world is this like fantastic utopia. And it's funny because when it shows you the businessmen, they're seen as kind of funny, but they're not dumb funny. They're just silly. And all the scenes with that. I also like that the movie handles that well. It handles the silliness with the realness and handles it in a way and gives a good story. And the movie does criticize Barbie as a whole, like the brand and everything, how it's brought women to low self-esteem because Barbies are seen as these perfect thin models. That part of the message, I think, was by far the best part of the film. Honestly, that was by far, besides Ryan Gosling as Ken, and I like the interesting messages. And I didn't expect the Barbie movie to be this good. Like, let alone me watching a Barbie movie, I didn't expect it to even be close to being solid. But anyways, that's for my review for Barbie. Now let's go to Oppenheimer.
6, 5, 4.
Time to be a real man and talk about a real man movie. And that is Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. Now, without a doubt, Oppenheimer by far was the better film. But I don't think anyone was even arguing which was going to be the better movie, because it's Nolan. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say this right now. While Nolan isn't my favorite filmmaker, I still give it to like Spielberg or James Cameron. I would even say James Gunn might be up there. But Nolan is the one director that's made this many movies that not a single one has been bad to me. And I like The Dark Knight Rises. Okay? I like Dark Knight Rises. I like Tenet. I love Inception. That's my favorite Nolan film. I love The Dark Knight. I love all these movies. And to me, while Nolan hasn't made like I know some of his movies aren't perfect. Tenet and Dark Knight Rises, again, let me bring those up. But he's just made so many great movies. To me, he's not the GOAT yet. Maybe he will be. Maybe. But maybe there'll be a couple more movies that will make me think he is the GOAT. But I am just gonna say this: he's perfect, and he doesn't miss. Okay, and I gotta say that right now, Oppenheimer was not another miss. Now, one thing I really want to clarify, one special thing I need to clarify about Oppenheimer as a movie, and one thing I'm so happy that he finally listened, is that he fixed the audio. Why is it so hard for one of the best directors of all time to get good audio in a movie? Why is that so difficult? Tenet, there's scenes in Tenet where I don't even understand what they're saying, and it doesn't even feel intentional. It feels like it was by accident. They're like, whoopsie, I'm sorry, I didn't know we were supposed to hear the character. It's like, Oppenheimer fixed that, and thank God. But obviously, this is a story about a man who built the atomic bomb, and what does that do to the psychology of a man that does that? And by the way, I love the fact that Nolan is allowed to have creative control, because you know what it led to? It led to them not spoiling much in the movie or in trailers, because in the trailers there's a lot of stuff that's like not even shown in the trailers, you know, and I appreciate Nolan for doing that. And I love this movie. Cillian Murphy, boom, what a great performance. But there's a performance that needs to get talked about more than Cillian. Well, Cillian was great. Robert Downey Jr., this guy was phenomenal. And he's barely in the movie, but every time he's there, it feels like time stops. And you just love the scenes he's in there. Robert Downey Jr. And the thing is, I didn't even remember he was in the movie until the last second. I was like, oh shit, yeah, he is in this movie. Obviously, Matt Damon's great. Emily Blunt in this movie. There's a star-studded cast. The guy who plays Huey in The Boys is there. I think his name is Jack Quaid. I think that's his name. Devin Bostic, the guy who plays Roger Heffley, one of the greatest movie characters for me of all time, is in this movie. Josh Peck. God damn, it feels like everyone is... It feels like getting a call from Nolan to be in your movie. It almost feels like that's the equivalent of getting fucking Bayern Munich in your phone being like, hey, you want to come play soccer with us? Or it's like the LA Lakers being like, hey, come play basketball with us. We got LeBron James, you know. Or now Inter Miami, where it's like, hey, we got Messi, we got Busquets, we got Iniesta, we got all this. That's what this feels like. But I love that this movie is ultimately a story about a man who built this atomic bomb. And I can confirm to you that the theater didn't blow up. So if you're worried about safety, I can just confirm to you that at least in my theater, Nolan didn't kill us all. But ultimately, it's such a great film. It's so, like, it's just so good, man. It's really good. And maybe I'm the worst movie reviewer, because oftentimes in my reviews, I'm either just like, it's so good, so good, so good, or it's either so bad, so bad, so bad, that I'm not really able to really get words across. But man, I'm just gonna say it, man. Nolan knocks it out of the park. This honestly is my second favorite movie of the year. Just behind Guardians Volume 3. I still have that at the top, but Oppenheimer certainly has that second place spot. It's funny because last week I watched Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and I was considering maybe it's my second favorite, but then Oppenheimer comes in and I'm like, oh shit, that is by far my second favorite movie. It's all cool, it all looks beautiful, it all looks stunning, the explosion scenes look good. There's some black and white scenes in this movie, but what I love about the movie is it's about questioning morality, because ultimately what Oppenheimer did was for the greater good. You know, some people might agree or disagree, but ultimately in that scenario it was for the greater good. But because he's not in the military mind, and because he's a scientist who wanted to bring good things to the world, and now learning that his creation caused the death of a bunch of people, and what does that do to a man? And how can a man live with that fear, knowing that they did what they did? And even though it was good, still, how can you live with that? Because nowadays, in a lot of movies, you have like an action hero who like kills a couple bad guys, and it's kind of like forgone, you know. But I like it when movies just challenge the idea of a character killing someone, especially when they've never done it before. Like with John Wick, that's understandable. John Wick has a huge body count even before the first movie began. You know, even Star-Lord, you know, all these other characters that kill, and it's pretty normal to them. But then there's characters that will like kill for the first time, but you never stop to talk about it or think about it. You know, that's why there's this scene in Doctor Strange. One of my favorite scenes in the entire MCU is this scene of Doctor Strange where he kills one of the Caecilius's bad guys. And he's like freaked out because he's never killed anyone. And he's like, I've I've just killed a man when I've been sworn to always save people. And this movie kind of feels like that, but to a greater extent. It's about this man. You know, how does he deal with that fact? How does he deal, because it's the pressure of World War II. It's also the pressure of how dangerous is this bomb really? You know, and it also gets into this topic of these weapons, these dangerous weapons being given to men, and can men be trusted with it? And I like that the movie does that. I like the tension it plays out in the beginning, and the tension changes. It's like the stories of each version of why this tension exists changes throughout the film. I love that, and I enjoyed it. And honestly, Cillian Murphy, I would even argue right now, I think he could be the best actor for the Oscars. I think he could be in that category right now. I'm not saying this is like one of the greatest performances of all time. Like, no, definitely Heath Ledger to me was better. But just right now, I'm thinking about all the movies I've seen this year alone, and I'm just thinking, if Cillian Murphy isn't in this top 10 list, then that either means he got snubbed, or there's just 10 other actors who gave better performances, which I don't know how that could even happen. But Cillian was just that great. And everyone was great. The cast was great. The difference between Barbie and Oppenheimer, obviously the differences are very huge. They're very different movies. But one major difference that I'll say is Oppenheimer had no flaws at all. And it's funny because these movies are kind of long. Oppenheimer's kind of long. I don't remember the runtime. It's funny, Oppenheimer was a longer movie, but yet I left watching Oppenheimer thinking that Barbie could have been cut like 10 minutes shorter or 20 minutes shorter. And Barbenheimer, honestly, if you can, try watching both of them this weekend. Ultimately, which movie do I recommend more? If you're asking me which one I prefer, I'm always going to say Oppenheimer. But I feel like they're for two complete... I mean, obviously that's why the whole meme is so popular, because they're so completely different movies, but they're coming out on the same day. Honestly, if you're just there looking for fun, go to watch Barbie, If you got kids, more than likely go take them to watch Barbie. I think they would be bored if you took them to Oppenheimer. If you're someone who likes these kind of serious, more deeper movies, while both of them have deep messages, Oppenheimer obviously has a bigger message to give and a bigger story to give. And both of them look beautiful, by the way. These movies look beautiful, but they look beautiful for different reasons. Oppenheimer because of how cool everything looks and how cinematic everything looks. Barbie is more because of how great the set designs look and not all that. But honestly, I'm glad that we live in a time like this where we're kind of spoiled with movies, and I feel like that's something we're not taking. We're kind of taking that for granted, because when COVID was around, we barely got Tenet and New Mutants, and then it took us a long time to finally get like Wonder Woman 84, like two of those movies being awful. And there was a time where we weren't even getting movies. Now we're kind of being spoiled. We just had Mission Impossible, we had Guardians, we had The Flash, Across the Spider-Verse. We had a lot of these great films that have come out, and we're kind of spoiled. And ultimately, one thing I really hope is Hollywood can kind of learn from this, because right now you're seeing a lot of action films not doing well in the box office. Obviously The Flash flopping, Indiana Jones, I really don't know how much it made, but it seems like it's not doing well. I hope Hollywood can learn that if you oversaturate the market, you're going to cause people to not want to go more. And I feel like one thing that Barbie and Oppenheimer both did is that they're both so different from the movies that we've been getting, that it gives people kind of this way of like, oh, we should go watch that because they're so different. Not only that, but the memes are helping. I think it's helped, because I actually heard some people being like, I heard some people in my theater being like, yeah, that they're going to go watch this other movie after, or this movie. It was like, especially when I went to go watch Oppenheimer, because Oppenheimer was a later screening yesterday, but you could hear like people kind of chattering, being like, oh, are we going to watch Barbie after this? And, I thought that was really cool. I think it's nice every once in a while. I love it when people just talk about movies. I love movies, okay? I don't run a movie channel anymore, but I still love movies, okay? I enjoy movies. Movies are my favorite thing ever, you know? And I hate this so much because I don't really know too many cinephiles around me. God, I hate that term, but usually around me it's like hardcore comic fans or like gamers, and I hate any time they kind of try to belittle my love for movies. You know, they're like, how does a 2-hour thing bring you that much love? You know? And I'm like, okay, cool, but like, how does a fucking, I don't know, week-long video game bring you that much love? You know, it's like, at the end of the day, I love movies. I love movies. I love shows. They bring me greater joy, even in my personal life. If you know me personally, you know that I'll reference movies and shows at random, especially Cobra Kai. Like every time, like I just bring up a Cobra Kai reference. I mean, my room, you can see you got, you got some news, some magazine pictures there. You got Infinity War, Batman vs Superman, Star Wars. Like I reference Star Wars a lot. I reference Marvel. I reference a lot of these things, and it's not just these big blockbuster movies. And it's just so good to see people actually wanting to do Barbenheimer. You know, I was even about to buy a shirt that said "I survived Barbenheimer," but I feel like that would have gone outdated kind of quickly. But no, I actually really enjoyed both of these films. Box office wise, Barbie's probably gonna win, but I don't care about box office anymore. That is the reason why I left Movie Talk wasn't just because box office, but that was part of it. You know, not only that, but some nerds get like a little strange, but you know, it's just good to see people going back to the theaters. You know, it was nice when No Way Home came out, and then when Top Gun Maverick came out, and it brought people back. And it's nice to see Barbie and Oppenheimer almost, you know, bringing back people. Not from that COVID era, but now from this oversaturation era. You know, I'm even going to say this right now. I think the Barbie movie was more fun than Cocaine Bear. I'm going to say that straight up. I'm being honest right now. Now, it might be my recency bias, but it is what it is. I don't know. But anyways, it's just good to see people enjoying going to the movies, but it is what it is. Anyways, that's all I got to say. If you've seen the movies, let me know your thoughts in the comment sections. If you've not, let me know. Which are you more interested for? Are you going to go watch Oppenheimer, or are you going to go watch Barbie? You know, it is funny. People are making it a versus thing. They're making it almost a combined thing. That's something that's interesting, because a lot of times, like when movies come out this close to one another, especially on the same day, it's like this big argument, this big debate. I remember when Captain Marvel and Shazam were coming out, and there was like a month apart. People were like, "Oh, Captain Marvel's gonna be better. Oh, Shazam's gonna be better." You know, or when especially when Civil War and Batman vs Superman were coming out around the same time. You know, there's so many people being like, Civil War is better, Batman vs Superman's better. You know, and it's kind of nice to see that people aren't arguing, especially because these two movies are so different from one another. It's kind of nice to see people just memeing it and kind of bringing it together. But hey, that's all I gotta say. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you on the next one. Ciao.
Trapping out like a trap, I do this shit for my mama. You believe in me? Do you even see where I'm trying to go? I can't go back home, nah. I've been left alone for so many times. Grabbed on a microphone, now I'm on my grind. So my life as a puzzle, I got a mastermind. But it wasn't easy, but the fact I nearly lost my life. They ain't have faith, so I didn't know belief. I was scared to see, I fell asleep. But now I walk trying to get the map complete. My life's like a game.